When questioned about Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson's repeated interventions into the Brexit process last September, Prime Minister Theresa May simply responded, "Boris is Boris." It seems that for as long as his tousled yellow mop of hair has bounced through Whitehall and Westminster, it has been one rule for Johnson and another for everyone else. This was encapsulated by May's decision to permit Johnson to be the only cabinet member allowed to oppose her plans to expand Heathrow Airport earlier this week. Yet the latest scandal to hit Johnson may be so damaging that even May, his chief apologist, cannot excuse it. In a recording obtained by BuzzFeed News, Johnson can be heard bragging to conservative activists about his knowledge on a variety of topics, from Brexit to Trump and Russia. So far, most of the reaction to Johnson's comments has focused on his demand for more guts, whatever that means, in the Brexit talks. But it seems that the most ridiculous, worrying and even sinister revelations are being overlooked. Firstly, there is his frightening lack of understanding of the Irish border issue almost 2 years after Britain voted to leave the EU. Johnson ridiculed the concerns about disruption at the borders as pure millennium bug stuff and said it's beyond belief that the Northern Irish border is proving to be an obstacle in Brexit negotiations. Commentators and politicians from Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland have frequently expressed worries that a hard border will ignite unrest and cause major issues for business, trade and production, comparing a non-existent bug to a 30-year conflict that very nearly tore a nation apart, claiming over 3,600 lives in the process, is misleading and insulting. Brexit Secretary David Davis, right, and International Trade Secretary Liam Fox leave 10 Downing Street. Prime Minister Theresa May held an emergency Brexit cabinet meeting in an attempt to resolve tensions over the UK's Irish border plan. Britain's Prime Minister Theresa May welcomes Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to Downing Street. British fashion designer and environmental campaigner, Dame Vivienne Westwood delivers an anti-fracking letter to 10 Downing Street in London. New images issued by the Grenfell Tower inquiry of the kitchen in Flat 16 where the fire started on June 14 last year. 71 people were killed after the fire tore through the housing block in Kensington. Bishop of Southwark Christopher Chesson and members of the public attend a commemoration service on the first anniversary of the London Bridge terror attack. Britain held a national minute of silence on June 3, 1 year on from the London Bridge terror attack that killed 8 people and injured dozens more. William Buick Reading Massa celebrates crossing the line and winning the Investec Derby race on Derby Day at Epsom Downs. Traffic passes anti-Brexit signs on the County Derry/Londonderry, Northern Ireland and County Donegal in the Irish Republic. Northern Ireland could be given joint EU and UK status and a buffer zone on its border with the Republic, under new plans being drawn up by David Davis, according to reports. Eleanor Crossy Malone displays an abortion pill packet after taking a pill as abortion rights campaign group Rosa, Reproductive Rights Against Oppression, Sexism and Austerity distribute abortion pills from a touring bus in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Flouting Northern Irish governmental laws which forbid the use of abortion pills, the group are also protesting outside offices belonging to the main political parties in the province. Women in Northern Ireland have been prosecuted for buying abortion pills over the internet, and it is illegal for a woman to have an abortion unless in special circumstances, unlike the rest of the United Kingdom. The Republic of Ireland voted in favour of pro-choice last week in a referendum. West Midlands police officers carrying out scene searches near to where a 15-year-old boy was fatally stabbed in Wolverhampton. A view at Westminster Abbey from the medieval Triforium that is hosting an exhibition in London. The Queen's Diamond Jubilee Galleries, set more than 16 metres, 52 feet, above the Abbey floor in the medieval Triforium, will open to the public for the first time on June 11, displaying over 300 treasures from the Abbey's collection which will tell the rich 1,000-year history of the institution at Westminster Abbey. People enjoy the hot weather on Bournemouth Beach during Bank Holiday Monday in Dorset. Chris Ashton of the Barbarians scores against England at Twickenham. Lightning strikes over the City of London. Rory McIlroy took the clubhouse lead into round 3 of the BMW PGA Championship at Wentworth. Alistair Cook batting against Pakistan during the first Test match of the summer at Lord's Cricket Ground, London. Home Secretary Sajid Javid speaking at the annual conference of the Police Federation of England and Wales at the International Convention Centre in Birmingham. Felix, too, sits next to messages and flowers left in Manchester, ahead of the Manchester Arena National Service of Commemoration at Manchester Cathedral to mark 1 year since the Manchester attack. Marcio and Andrea Gomez, parents of Logan Gomez, arrived for a commemoration hearing at the opening of the inquiry into the Grenfell Tower disaster, in London. Brackley Town celebrate after winning the Build-based FA Trophy final after they beat Bromley on penalties at Wembley Stadium. Actress Meghan Markle reaches Prince Harry at the altar in St George's Chapel at Windsor Castle for their wedding service. Workers from the Covent Garden branch of TGI Fridays on the picket line outside the restaurant as they strike in a dispute over pay. Members of Unite are taking action on Friday in a row over tips and payment of the minimum wage. A police officer talks to a homeless man in Windsor ahead of the wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Wing Commander John Butcher, commanding officer of 617 Squadron, left, jokes with Britain's last surviving dam buster, Squadron leader George John E. Johnson, during an event to mark the 75th anniversary of the dam busters' raids, at RAF Coningsby. The Royal Air Force Battle of Britain Memorial Flight was hoping to fly one of the 2 remaining Avro Lancaster bombers over the Derwent and Lady Bower reservoirs, but high winds prevented the aircraft from taking off. 2018 marks the 100th anniversary of the formation of the RAF and the 75th anniversary of the 617 Squadron Dam Busters operation. The Dam Buster Raids, Operation Chastise, was an attack on German dams on 17 of May 1943 by Royal Air Force No. 617 Squadron, using an innovative bouncing bomb, which skimmed on the surface of the reservoir before hitting the dam wall and exploding. President of Turkey Recep Tayyip Erdogan speaks as British Prime Minister Theresa May listens during a press conference after their meeting at 10 Downing Street. Erdogan is in the UK for a 3-day visit, which includes a closing lecture at the Tat Lidl Forum in Oxford, an audience with the Queen and talks with Theresa May. The funeral cortege of Alfie Evans goes past Everton's Goodison Park ground in Liverpool. Doctors at Alder Hey Children's Hospital in Liverpool stopped providing life support treatment to Alfie last month after his parents, Tom Evans and Kate James, lost 2 rounds of fights in the High Court, Court of Appeal, Supreme Court and European Court of Human Rights. Daisy May Cooper, the winner of the Female in a Comedy Award for this country, with her BAFTA. Thousands of union members marched through central London demanding a new deal for workers, in an event organised by the Trades Union Congress, TUC. Jeremy Corbyn with shipbuilding apprentices at the Fairfield Shipbuilding Museum in Govan. During a speech he called for Navy shipbuilding contracts to stay in the UK. Dominic Chilcott, right, British ambassador in Turkey, hands over a letter of apology from the UK government to Libyan dissident Abdul Hakim Belhaj, at the British consulate, in Istanbul. Abdul Hakim Belhaj and his wife, Fatima Boudka, allege they were detained in Southeast Asia in 2004 and sent to Libya to be interrogated by the regime of late dictator Muammar Gaddafi. Britain acknowledged Thursday that its intelligence agents played a role in the kidnapping and torture of an opponent of the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, a rare admission of wrongdoing by British spies. The coffin of former House of Commons Speaker Lord Michael Martin, followed by his widow Mary, is carried from St Aloysius in Glasgow after his funeral. The former Labour MP died on Sunday, April 29, after a short illness at the age of 72. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan and Labour MP Heidi Alexander. Ms Alexander is standing down from Parliament after being confirmed as London's Deputy Mayor for Transport, replacing current Deputy Mayor Val Shawcross. Arsene Wenger bids farewell to Arsenal Football Club and the stadium he helped to build in more ways than one. It was Wenger's final home game of after 22 years in charge. Arsenal sent him off with a 5-0 victory over Burnley. Manchester City celebrate with the trophy after winning the Premier League title. Anti-independence supporters wave Union Jack flags as thousands of demonstrators march in support of Scottish independence through the streets of Glasgow. Prime Minister Theresa May with her supporters during a visit to Wandsworth Town Hall, where the Conservative Party retained control of Wandsworth Council in the local elections. Jeremy Corbyn outside a polling station in Islington after voting in the local elections. A memorial to George Michael outside his house in Highgate, North London. George Michael's family have since asked fans to remove their tributes from outside the late singer's former homes for the sake of his neighbours. Lester Morrisman during May Day celebrations at Bradgate Park in Newtown, Linford, Leicestershire. Sajid Javid outside the Home Office in Westminster after he was appointed as the new Home Secretary. Celtic celebrate after winning. They confirmed winning the Scottish Premiership by beating rivals Rangers 5-0 at Celtic Park. People released balloons outside Alderhay Children's Hospital in Liverpool, following the death on Saturday morning of Alfie Evans, who was being treated at the hospital. The 23-month-old died at 2:30 a.m., parents Kate James and Thomas Evans said on Facebook. The youngster was at the center of a legal battle over his treatment that touched hearts around the world. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, right, speaks with British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, left, and Belgian Foreign Minister Didier Reynders, centre, during a meeting of the North Atlantic Council at NATO headquarters in Brussels. NATO held its last major meeting in its old headquarters, with talks focused on strained ties with Russia, a fresh peace effort in Afghanistan and a new training mission for Iraq. A protester wearing a mask depicting Facebook's CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, flanked by two protesters wearing angry emoji masks protest outside Portcullis House in central London. Facebook's CTO Mike Schroepfer appeared in front of British members of Parliament on the Digital, Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee in the wake of allegations that information on millions of its users was misused. Members of the military work in the Maltings shopping area, close to the bench where Russian former double agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter Yulia were found critically ill 7 weeks ago. The area around the bench where the couple collapsed is one of 9 sites to be cleaned in an operation that is likely to take several months. A statue in honor of the first female suffragette Millicent Fawcett is unveiled as Prime Minister Theresa May and Mayor of London Sadiq Khan look on during a ceremony in Parliament Square. The statue of women's suffrage leader Millicent Fawcett is the first monument of a woman and the first designed by a woman, Turner Prize-winning artist Gillian Waring OBE, to take a place in Parliament Square. Prince William arrives at the Lindo wing of St Mary's Hospital with his children Prince George and Princess Charlotte after his wife Catherine, the Duchess of Cambridge, gave birth to a son. Kenya's Eliud Kipchoge crosses the finish line to win the men's elite race at the London Marathon 2018. Team England athletes during the Commonwealth Games Team England parade in Victoria Square, Birmingham. Varun Chopra of Essex during the Specsavers County Championship Division 1 match between Essex and Lancashire at the Chelmsford County Cricket Ground. The game is being played in the warmest April temperatures in 70 years. A young boy cools off in the fountains in Piccadilly Gardens in Manchester. In addition, he described Northern Ireland as so small, quite insulting to the 1.8 million citizens who live there and will be affected if a hard border is implemented. I can't imagine that's going to go down well with the DUP. Next we hear Johnson boasting about how closely he watched Londoners while he was mayor. You know, when I was mayor of London, I could tell where you all were just when you swiped your Oyster card over a tube terminal, a tube gizmo. He continued, the idea that we can't track movement of goods, it's just nonsense. Aside from the fact that our foreign secretary thinks a tube gizmo can track goods and people across a 500 km border, this revelation is sinister. Might the Information Commissioner, who oversees the use of our data, have something to say about this? Of course Boris didn't stop there. He next informed activists of his increased admiration of Donald Trump. Imagine Trump doing Brexit, Johnson said. He'd go in bloody hard. There'd be all sorts of breakdowns, all sorts of chaos. Everyone would think he'd gone mad. But actually, you might get somewhere. It's a very, very good thought. What is most worrying here is that Boris seems to admire the chaos that encircles Trump, suggesting that a man who simply can't decide whether he wants a summit with North Korea or not, and whose shambolic and widely condemned decision to move the US Embassy in Israel to Jerusalem resulted in the slaughter of 100 Palestinians, shows borderline contempt for the well-being of UK citizens and those abroad. It further shows that the elites who run our government, and control Brexit, couldn't care less about the consequences of their actions. Boris Johnson gets duped by Russian pranksters. Johnson also divulged information relating to Britain's foreign policy. He suggested that Theresa May will use the G7 summit in Canada to propose a new international rapid response unit to deal with Russian cyber attacks and assassinations. He also revealed that he'd spoken to Mike Pompeo, the US Secretary of State, about the situation in North Korea earlier that day. The Americans want Britain to use our nuclear expertise to dismantle Kim Jong-un's nuclear missile, Johnson disclosed. That's what he asked me to do today. Whether any of his claims are true or not, it raises one key question. If Johnson is divulging national security and diplomatic information to Conservative supporters willy-nilly, what other information could he be letting slip? And to whom? Hillary Clinton's presidential bid was derailed for deleting emails. Surely Boris cannot keep his job after this. Years of watching Boris play the fool has created a culture of boys will be boys, or indeed Boris is Boris. But far from being a harmless fool, this recording suggests that his ignorance, ideological stance and loose mouth are damaging British interests, and possibly our security. Instead of sweeping his latest blunder under the rug, we owe it to ourselves to ask the right questions about this recording.